Hello, and welcome to Be Your Own Advocate. This is a show where we present and deliver information that helps you be your own advocate in your life, whether it's having to do with your health, your mindset, whatever it is, we're looking to provide information to you. So today, our first guest, her name is Susan Dunn. She's the founder of Elements in the Desert, and she's an extraordinary transformational breathwork practitioner. The reason I use the word extraordinary is I very rarely see the comments that come back to her from people that have been in her classes and have worked with her about how profound the experience was and how it has definitely changed their life. She has over 35 years in the health and wellness field and brings all of that to her work with breath work, with nervous system regulation, and with mindset transformation. Her sessions blend music. I think of them as like telling the story and science-backed breathing techniques to create really profound breakthroughs and transform people's lives. And the people she works with just absolutely, have talked about how powerful these sessions are. So welcome, Susan, to Be Your Own Advocate. Welcome, Susan. I just gave your intro and was was explaining to our listeners how profound your work is with breath work. So the first thing, and of course, I'm here with Isaiah, my co-host, and my nephew. So we do these podcasts together because we both bring different things to the table. So for someone who's never experienced breath work, what happens that results in people feeling so relieved and uplifted at the end of your sessions?
Well, can I first say that thank you for having me on. So it's a
Absolutely.
pleasure to
Absolutely. Yeah.
have this time with both of you. So what happens in breathwork session? What I love about breathwork, it meets people exactly where they are. A lot of people think that they're coming in for meditation, and it's quite different. They quickly realize that they've been carrying around years of stress and pressure and grief and anxiety and this emotional weight in their body. And in my sessions, I do a couple different styles of breath work. I always say breath work is like an umbrella term. There's so many different styles of breath
Yes.
work.
True.
So I do a quantum breath work to start them off with some breath holds, and we talk about chakras. And then I do conscious connected breath work. So that's
Oh,
mainly the active breath work style that I do. And it's a nervous system regulation and through emotional guidance. And it helps the mind reconnect people back to themselves. So the breath has this incredible ability to bypass the analytical mind and
mhm.
access what's suppressed underneath all of that. So people often feel, emotionally lighter, and their body finally gets permission to release what they've been holding on to. So, Isabel, what this looks like is sometimes people may cry, they may laugh, they have clarity. There's peace and joy that comes from it. I see a lot of forgiveness with people and simply just this calmness that they haven't felt in a very long time. Some people will say it's like 15 years of therapy without saying a word. Not to discount
Mm,
therapy because I think talk therapy is very important
sure.
as well. But this is just another modality, right? Is more tools that we can have in our toolbox. And the breath is a wonderful avenue for that. I always say your breath is the bridge back to your power. And we carry around the
Bridge
superpower
back
right
to your
underneath our nose
Yeah.
that we
How
can
do you
use.
think, why do you think that, how do you think that works? You've done so many of these. How does that work where they can bypass and just go, like somehow go to their weight and release it?
Well, I think that most of us were never taught how to process emotions in a healthy way.
Right.
And so, we're taught to stay strong and, move on and get over it. And
And let it go. Let it
yeah,
go.
and the
Yeah.
body remembers, the body keeps score. I don't know if you read that book, but it's a great book. The body keeps score and it remembers and it tries to outrun that. And over time, unresolved emotions will, they get stored. It's stored energy, right? Emotion is energy, emotion. So it's suppressed energy in the body. And then, I think just having a pause and people realize, just being in the present moment. And because of the conscious connected breath work, we're shutting off the frontal cortex of the brain where your critic
Mm,
sits,
okay.
or I
Yeah.
call her my rowdy roommate. We all have one, even you, Isaiah, the rowdy roommate, right? Well, it gets to quiet down. And then you go more into inner guidance, right? In the subconscious mind.
Yeah. Isaiah does amazing transformational work. He has a way of getting the body to respond, to release held emotions, right? Held emotions, held illness, and so do you use breath work, Isaiah, when you're doing
Oh,
your
you
work?
froze.
100%. Yeah. Whether it's in the activation, stretching, strengthening process, I definitely bring people into their tolerance level where they're on the edge of their nervous system, the edge of their tissue, and then breathe into it. Because if you can't breathe into it, you can't keep it. You've got
Right.
to be able to breathe in and regulate yourself in order to keep what's there. Whether that's mobility, strength, stability, or emotional integrity, whatever it might be. So I think that one of the first things I see people holding their breath in session, they hold their breath. That's the primary way we compensate. And even if they're good with their body and stable, they still are holding their breath and they don't even realize it. So it's really, really common. I see it all day. And I think yeah, it's one of the most important things we can do is really devote to learning how to regulate ourselves through the breath and then doing processes like yours, I imagine, to unstick, right? It's like we need to train it. It's millions of unconscious breaths that we have to start to untrain consciously through specific muscle activations, specific processes, and kind of like you said, tricking or going underneath the protective mechanism that's formed there, and use the breath to start to open that safety up again.
Yeah.
What do you
Yes.
think about safety in the breath? What comes up for you? How important is it to help establish safety for people through the breathing
You mean
process?
safety in a session or
Yeah, in their nervous system period, like, is it a primary focus for you to help them establish safety, or is there a different focus?
well, for in my sessions, safety is always number one as a facilitator,
Yeah.
right? So, and people are always in control of their sessions. So I always make sure that they know that. And and it's not a one-off session. We are layers. I always say it's like an onion layer, right? We're peeling those layers away. But how how I facilitate, uh, I'm always coaching them that they are in a safe space because we know, your body knows, and it's just waiting for you to pause to release. Yeah. I love what you were saying about regulation with the tissues and all that, because I always say, as I've been a therapist for a very long time, I started doing massage when I was 10 years old. So it's just, that's been my life. And so in my sessions, I'll say, you have issues in your tissues, right? Because it
Love
just
it.
gets stored.
Mhm.
So, I think once people just have a moment just to pause and be in the present moment, and it doesn't take much, right, for them to start releasing once, lyrics of the music's playing, and then I'm saying these things on top of the lyrics. Yeah.
I think that the body keeps a score in that idea of like stacked up tension in the body, like we're holding our issues. I'm curious what you think about this, but I feel like a lot of times the way people perceive that is like there's a dense mass of something actually physical there. And maybe, but then I wonder like how much is really about identity, about stacked protection, over and
Mhm.
over to the point where there's an identity there that thinks it's got to maintain and compensate something. But the breathing is amazing because when you go into a good breathing process, I feel like that stuff starts to disarm and things we thought were really solid and like controlling our movement or our life or limiting us starts to dissolve and it's like it literally goes away. Have you had that experience where
Right. I do. Yeah, I can see that with people. I
yeah,
always explain that, as you can't get to our age without negative things that have happened to us, right? And we keep
That's right.
suppressing that. It's just energy, right? So I
Yeah.
try and like, there's no shame or judgment in any of the sessions, right? It's just energy when you look at it. And, the organs govern different emotions, right? So you can't keep over tapping an organ. Eventually, it's going to tap out on you, right? Eventually, there's going to be dis-ease in the body
Hmm.
because
Hmm.
the body can only take so much of that energy before it's like, okay, so I surrender, help, And so that's what I just think that with that breath, and pausing, and then you just get them in the circular breath, then that it can unravel itself.
Oh, I like that. The circular breath unravels.
Mhm.
I think that's key. You were saying about, well, how many different types of breath work, breath techniques there are. Um, some simple, some, much more in depth. what do you find to be the most, what technique do you find that releases the person to have the most power in themselves? What like really makes that person feel like they've changed and they've transformed? Yeah.
That's a great question. You know, it depends what they're showing up with, right? Because there's different
Oh,
breaths for different states of whatever,
oh, I didn't
it
even
just,
realize that.
yeah, it depends if you want to go, the sympathetic, if you need to liven somebody up, or the parasympathetic and calm and relax them, right?
What
So,
about the person that's very,
sorry.
no,
So
I was
my
gonna say
breath
like the
work,
person that's very, very burdened. Like I know people when I read what people say after they've come to a session with you, and they seem to feel like they've like changed and let go of something that's been such a heavy burden on them. And one session with you, all of a sudden they feel like they can breathe again. Oh, it's funny. Yeah, they can breathe again. What technique do you use for that?
well, that one is the quantum breath work and the conscious connected breath work. But I always tell people like what I teach them, they can do at home.
Hmm.
Um, but like if you're driving in your car, a great breath is just the box breath, or before you
Hmm.
go to bed, the 4-7-8 is a great way to calm down the system. But if you really want to get things out of your body, then I use the conscious connected breath work. Hands down, I've never found anything more profound than that technique.
What
The
is
conscious,
that?
the conscious connected breath work. Two
What
breaths
how
in and then a breath out. It's inhale belly, inhale chest, and then a surrender breath.
just that simple?
Yeah. Yep.
Hmm.
And that's all they have to do is the breath and let go of the perfection and the rowdy roommate.
Hmm. Do you use your music? I think your music kind of tells the story while you're doing the work,
Yeah, I'll
Susan,
take a
I've seen
song
Susan
and
had sent me a tape of her work for me to do at home, and I was so surprised with the music that she chose to walk through. It wasn't, all new age kind of music, but words. You use words a lot in your breath work. Yeah.
yeah, I'll put together a playlist and kind of then craft a script around that, or things that I might want to tap upon. Like last night we had like Michael Jackson with the Man in the Mirror, right? And
Oh
it's
yeah.
about looking inward of the things that you want to change. You can't expect people to show up how you want to show up. So
Hmm.
just stuff like that. Just
Yeah.
playing on top of lyrics and sending a
Hmm.
message to them. And
You,
then I
you,
have hypnotherapy questions that I'll ask too to get the mind always likes to
you
think.
combine
So
that with the breath work.
mhm.
Yeah, that would be a big release. Yeah. Right, right, Isaiah. Isaiah, when you use breath work, when you're doing your work, Isaiah has ways of having the body release. And when you combine the breath work with it, do you have them breathe into the areas that you're trying to
One,
open?
100%. Yeah. I feel like too, we're all accustomed to breathing away to try to make space, which is really valuable, parasympathetic, relaxation, right? But until we breathe into it, I don't know if that's going to work. My experience has shown that just getting to your edge in some way and then bringing yourself into it, bring yourself towards it, disarms it, and then it can finally start to let go. So, on a muscular level and a nervous system and an emotional level,
Beautiful.
can you meet that more, breathe into it, and then start to integrate it? Um, so I think that, yeah, the breath is so important. It's like the most important thing we could potentially focus on, but it's so subtle and so automatic and it's easy to overlook. But
Yeah.
it's the cornerstone. It's the fuel for life. It is the most important thing, honestly, that we could probably tap into. It's hard to say, right? There's sleep, nutrition, relationship, all these things, but without the breath, we got nothing. We have no
Right.
access point, you know?
I always
And
say like the breath is the most important relationship you have with yourself. It's the
yeah,
first thing you do when you come into this world, and it's the last thing you do when you leave.
No, that's
And if you can
absolutely
get a
true.
relationship with the breath,
Hmm.
hands down. I mean, I've been in the industry for a long time and I've never come across a modality quite like this. I mean, it touches my heart. As you can see, I'm very passionate about it.
Hmm.
and it's the breath is it's within communication. It controls communication. It makes communication spacious or not. It allows for everything to happen in our life because it all is based in breath and communication ultimately.
Hmm.
So I talk about there's a guy, Jefferson Fisher, is a great communication specialist. He talks
Oh,
about
yeah.
making their first word a breath,
Mhm.
just giving yourself, start to give yourself that space, set your own tone, and then reestablish power for yourself. It's very empowering to be able to not just automatically jump in, but just like give yourself a little moment,
Mhm.
one breath, and then response can be very different response. And then the things we think we don't have control over and that we're at effect by and victimized by and all this stuff, we start to actually gain ourselves back amidst all those things. It's amazing.
Yeah, yeah,
Love it.
yeah. It
Yeah.
is amazing. And you, Susan, you have a lot of people in your classes. I've seen all of them. You have them laying down but I see how filled the room is with a lot of people. For you uh, to address each one of those people is really amazing. You just kind of move about and go in and out of people's psyches and see what
Yeah.
they're at and
I typically will have anywhere from like 6 to 20, but then once we get any bigger than that, then I always have room assistants with me because, Isaiah, there here comes the safety part, right? It's really important to have a really safe container when
Mhm.
people are addressing their healing. So yeah.
yeah.
But and I also do
So
Zoom, and Zoom is beautiful too.
mhm.
You think
Yeah.
that's why people are afraid to go into the breath is because all that's held in there, all of the emotions that we have to kind of encounter as we start to breathe into the body consciously.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you say to someone who is afraid? How do you get them to not be afraid of healing themselves?
I would say, first of all, fear is normal.
Here's
And,
normal.
healing asks you to step into the unfamiliar territory. And a
Yeah.
lot of people stay attached to the old stories and survival systems. But the beautiful thing is, healing isn't about becoming somebody else. It's about coming home to who you've been before all those stories and survival mode took over. So, um,
You
yeah.
like that one?
I love
Susan,
that.
what?
Oh, I just love that. I love the identity piece, because
Yeah.
the breath is so tied with the identity. It's like this, can you, yes, can you encounter the breath more organically and then start to unwind the identity that's limiting us? It's really right there in the breath.
Hmm.
When
Absolutely.
when you say quantum breath work, can you just explain that again for me, just real fast?
Yeah, so a lot of answers can be in the quantum field. So with the
Mhm,
quantum breath, what I do is it's an inhale for four and an exhale for four, and it's done through the mouth. And I do about 3 minutes of a round of that. And
mhm,
then I've already talked about the torus field that's around us and your chakras. So, and I've, passed around information to make sure that everybody's aware of the root chakra and all
mhm,
that. So then when we go to the breath hold and we're really driving the cerebral spinal fluid up the spine to the
mhm,
pineal gland that
mhm, mhm,
that's going to bathe and cleanse that pineal gland, then that way they're really getting the idea and can visualize that and really can feel that. So I do 3 minutes of circular breath and
mhm,
then we do a breath hold. And then I always say like an otter pop or like I say I'm of the era of otter pops. I don't know about you guys, but or like how about a tube of toothpaste, right? Where you're supposed to
mhm,
squeeze from the bottom up. My husband likes to
mhm.
squeeze right in the middle. But you go squeezing from the bottom up. So that's why I try and really get people to visualize squeezing from the bottom up, and we're driving that cerebral spinal fluid up to the pineal gland. Yeah.
Mhm,
And then eventually, you can have a DMT experience, and that's dimethyltryptamine, and that's a natural chemical that we have in our body. And eventually, when you clean out the pineal gland, and usually the pineal gland, to clean that to your cerebral spinal fluid, usually takes 12 hours for that to cleanse itself. But we can do that in a breathwork session very quickly. So, yeah,
And then after that is when a person then that's when they sense what they've been holding and then
base,
through the
right?
session they continue to release. Do you find that people actually need to identify what they're releasing or it doesn't matter? It's just a release that just cleanses.
Yeah, a release that cleanses. Sometimes people don't know, like, wow, I don't know where that came from. But very often, like we go back to the body keeps score, people are like, wow, I didn't think about that till I was 16 years old. That I didn't know
Hmm.
that bothered me as much as it did. because the body held on to it. The
Right.
nervous system held on
And
to it.
then it comes, they think about it, and then that's how they're like, oh yeah, like, and then from that point, it can just breathe it on out, right?
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah, that's amazing. I mean, it's just, it's so incredible how popular breath work is right now, as if people have finally discovered something that is so natural, but I don't think people realized how powerful it could be. So and I guess when people, after they leave the session, it's not only the release they feel, but the realization that they did it, that it was within them to have the power to move freely past things, and then they make space for the new things, which is what we're always trying to have people do, is find a way to move out the past so that all of the new can come in, because even in the cells, the cells hold so many toxic things, whether it be water, food, or thoughts, and then it's very hard for the cell to get healthy unless we clear out those toxins. So that's part of when I think when you're doing the breath work, you're just clearing and clearing and clearing, and then make space for the newness of whatever they want to come in. Do you do follow-ups with them?
I do. Yeah, I'll touch base the next day. And then, typically people will do this on their own and then they come in for a coach session. But I love what
Yeah,
you said, yeah, that about the awareness, right? If we can pause and have awareness, then that's when the transformation can happen,
right.
is in the awareness.
I love that, because right now there's just such a constant flood of information that comes to each individual, and decisions they have to make. They have to make decisions about everything, how they feel, how they think about this, how they think about that, and everything's in question. And there's never a time when people can just clear and just empty for that moment. And I know that Isaiah does that with his work, and you do that with your work, and that's just tremendous, because people, they don't know where to go. But the fact that you can be driving down the road in a car and, just, I do that all the time. It's like almost when I have the moment to remember to breathe, because I'll be breathing like, right here. And then all of a sudden I'll be like, oh, perfect, and I'll just take that nice breath. And when I get it in my belly, I round it, move it around, I put color in it and all kinds of things. And it's just such a helpful thing this way. And I guess also it helps you listen. Maybe when you get to that point of clearing, you can hear your inner voice, You were talking about inner child before, and hear that voice of like, hello, let me out. Yeah,
Yeah, I totally agree with that. With people are just so on autopilot.
yeah,
And that's what that quantum breath is. I give them a moment to really feel into that space,
uh-huh,
right? I'll say,
yeah,
feel the space expanding beside you and in front
mhm,
of you. And, then there's a lot of answers that can just happen, right?
yeah,
In that,
mhm,
in that space.
right,
Yeah.
yeah,
I like you're talking about breath holding. I don't know what time I have here. You can always jump off, but tell the breath hold is so crucial. I feel like um, as we hold the breath or go into the limitation, that's when a lot of release happens. And I think that the breath holds are good for a lot of reasons. One thing is if we're breathing short, shallow breaths, fast breaths, we're over oxygenated, but it's not available, right? So that breath hold in the negative space or positive, but negative, especially holding that breath increases CO2 tolerance. The CO2 goes up and it starts to make the oxygen available to the cells again. And that's really crucial, as well as a bunch of positive effects of negative breath holds. I'm curious if you use that in your practice at all and if you've experienced change from that.
Yeah, of course, we go back to safety with that. Is number one, like we don't want pregnant people doing breath holds or, if you've had some heart. And so I always do there's a medical screening or just questionnaire prior to each of my sessions. But yeah, definitely like with the breath holds, it's profound. Like you were saying, going into that space and letting the body expand into that. Yeah.
mhm.
Mhm.
Well, thank you so much, Susan, for sharing the breath work and the simple technique. I think the fact that there's something that's simple that people can start with on their own, and is fantastic. And I love your work, and
Thank
I
you.
think that the people that get to come into you and have sessions with you are blessed for it. So,
No,
Thank you
it's
so
truly an honor, right? It's, people are
Yeah,
like, oh, you're a healer. And it's like, no, you're the healer.
you're the
We all
healer.
have the power inside of us. I'm just here facilitating. It just comes through me. But you are the healer. We all have that ability inside of us. We are so powerful, much more than what we know. So I just want everybody to really feel that and that life doesn't have to be hard and heavy. It just doesn't.
Right.
And what you're
Yeah.
holding on to and resisting, that's where your suffering's coming from, is because you're resisting. Or it's
Yeah.
those old goggles, those old world goggles from past, from 0 to 8 years old that you're looking through life. And you just
Mm.
change your perspective a little bit, life
Yeah.
could be a little bit easier.
Yeah. Right.
Cheers to catalyzing and facilitating for people, because that is
Oh,
such a powerful role, such an important role that you're
oh, it's
Yeah.
playing in
such an
people's
honor.
lives. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So thank you very much for being a guest on Be Your Own
Thank
Advocate.
you.
And, God bless you for all your good work.
Thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate it.